What if you could cut tasks from hours to minutes? Wouldn't that change how your agency operates? Imagine if what took you 14 hours now takes you 2 hours, or what took you 4 hours now takes 35 minutes. For Matt Rouse, co-owner of Hook SEO, those numbers reflect the reality of how AI is raising his agency's productivity. In this episode, Matt shares how AI has drastically increased productivity at his agency, helped him streamline operations, enhance client services, and even develop new offerings. Tune in to hear how his agency cut task times from hours to minutes using AI and discover the AI tools they use to automate tasks, reduce costs, and deliver more value to clients. Plus, get the story behind how he developed a new service that's more affordable for clients and more profitable for his business. Catch all of it on this week's episode. Welcome to the Small But Mighty Agency podcast. If you want to grow an agency to 7 figures and beyond without working more hours in your business, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Audrey Joy Kwan. I know what it takes to build an agency, including supporting an agency owner in selling and exiting. I also have a master's degree in communications, specializing in organizational development. My team and I have worked behind the scenes of multiple 7-figure agencies and have coached and consulted with over 150 agency owners. All this to say, when you join us on the Small But Mighty Agency podcast, you get real-world experience and practical tips that help you work less, earn more, and lead with integrity. So let's go. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Small But Mighty Agency podcast. A topic that we can't avoid and shouldn't put on the back burner is how AI will impact the agency space. When I met Matt, who owns Hook SEO Digital Marketing, and found out that he authored a book called Will AI Take My Job? I was naturally curious and wanted to bring him on this episode to share how AI has changed his agency. And what caught my attention, and I'm sure you will have your ears open for it, is how AI has helped his business be twice as productive. I'm excited to dive into the details and explore how AI is supporting implementation, account servicing, and productization in his agency. So let's get right into it. Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Audrey. How are you today?
I'm good. I think the listeners might hear a little bit of change in my voice because I've been struggling with a bit of a cold, but I am so excited to be here to have this conversation. And I really wanted to get into this conversation by asking you, how did you first start integrating AI into your agency?
So my business partner and I both have an information systems background. So we were already kind of heavily into tech. So we kind of stick on the cutting edge of the technical side of things.
What were the initial challenges and surprises that you had as you started to integrate AI into your business?
Well, we were pretty early adopters. So we already were using a lot of kind of data management and some kind, I guess I would call them early AI tools. They weren't AI, generative AI, as you would see nowadays. But when GPT-3 came out, we started working with it. I had it's hard to describe. It's like a feeling that I got when I got my first computer, which was way back, like we're talking 1980. And I got it and I was able to type in instructions and it did something on its own. And I was just like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life, right? And there's very few technologies that have happened where I had that feeling like this is magic, like a literal magic. I don't even know how it does this thing. And so I immediately dug into it. And what I found was a lot of people looked at it and said, yeah, okay, it can write some sentences and a few paragraphs, but it's not that good of a writer. And I said, this is 24 months away from being better than half the writers on the planet. And turns out I was right. So from there, we just dove headfirst in. How much can we use this system to improve the productivity of our agency? And we had just come out of COVID with essentially no staff. So we are super busy. we were contemplating hiring more productive work assistants and like some VAs and some other people. Instead, we decided to hire an editor and a software developer, and that was it. Everything else we did with automation and AI systems.
Can you share more about how AI plays into the day-to-day operations of your agency?
Well, I'll give you a good example. We have a customer who has a WooCommerce website. So they're doing e-commerce, but they have wholesale and retail on the same website. When the person who handles their orders has to determine if something is a wholesale customer or a retail customer, it doesn't say in WooCommerce. So I went into a program called SimTheory, where I have a WordPress trained agent, and that agent has all of the documentation for WooCommerce, all of the documentation for WordPress, all of the documentation for the plugins, all of the customer's information and data. And I said, how do I show on the order screen if an order is wholesale or not? And it went and gave me the code. And I took that and put it into the website, and it needed a little bit of bug checking and some error fixing, but I got that done in about 35 minutes. And that used to be about a 4-hour programming job.
Okay, that's a great comparative number. So what took you about 4 hours to do before now takes you 35 minutes. And that's because you've taken and programmed software, or I should say AI, to be able to do that. I'm curious, I'm sure in your actual day-to-day operations that you found multiple number of ways to maximize that productivity. And so you've given us kind of one instance where AI helps you to handle a task, although not completely, it does handle it much faster than you would have been, just a few years ago when it took you 4 hours to do. Are there any other day-to-day operation items that you would say has that type of output where you used to do X amount of hours, but now you do X amount of minutes because of AI? And what are they?
Yeah, a really good example. And I thought of this example because I was listening to your podcast. I went back and listened to about a dozen episodes, and they're really good, by the way.
Thank you.
But I wanted to get kind of a good feel for, who your listener is and the other agencies that are listening to the show. And so this is a really good one that we do. So we used to, and this is a common agency thing, we would kind of interview a client or have someone interview the client, and we would make like a hero video. So a 16:9 style YouTube video that explains what the customer does or what their product is, what their service is, something like that. And then you would cut a couple clips out of that to put on the social media. Maybe you write a little blog about it or something. So now what we do is we still produce that video, but then we use Suno is a large language model that generates music. So we'll use that to generate the background music. We use 11 Labs to do the voiceover. We use 11 Labs to generate any sound effects we need. And then we get that video. We use a program called Runway ML it'll do the transcription, but it gives you YouTube time codes with it, which is really handy because then you don't have to figure out the time codes. And then it'll also translate, and it doesn't translate word for word like Google Translate. You can tell it to translate in a more natural fashion. And so then we can put the video on YouTube transcribed with time codes in multiple languages. And then we load that into a program called Get Munch. It's MUNCH, Get Munch. And with Munch, we just upload the YouTube. We just paste the YouTube link in, and we pick like a template if we want to use one, or you can create your own. And we hit submit. And about an hour later, it'll have 20 video clips already in 9:16, already captioned, plus the Twitter posts, descriptions, hashtags. All that's done. So that whole process takes us about 2 hours. That used to take us 14 hours.
Ooh.
And we used to only get 3 videos out. Now we get 21 videos out.
Wow, that definitely is a productivity increase from the hours reduced to the output that's happening. What it sounds like to me is that you've become an expert at stacking different AI apps together to reduce the time that you spend doing the work and then obviously increasing that output.
Yes. The idea is not to get rid of people's jobs or anything like that. The idea is how much more productive can each person be? And also, how much can we reduce the time of tasks that are not fun?
When you arrived at stacking all those different AI apps, there must have been a lot of research that you did to figure out which apps made the most sense. Can you share a bit of that process? Like, how did you arrive at, we need these 3 different types of AI apps in this implementation process? Or was it more of like a trial by error type of thing where you started adding in, deleting? Walk me through that. I think many people who are trying to figure out how to use AI, I think that there is more out there than ChatGPT. How do we go about finding the right ones for ourselves and testing it to make sure that it works with the type of service we want to provide and also has quality maintenance?
So there's 2 ways that we look at tools. Number one is I want to look at all the available tools and the features and see if it's something I think has any use for us. And if it does, then myself or my business partner will go look at it, try and figure out if it does what we need it to do and if it's useful. We've demoed a lot of software that sucks, right? But we have found we found the diamond in the rough of each of these kind of tools that we need to use that we can string together. The other thing is sometimes we just specifically need a tool for something because we have a process, it's slow, it's painful for whatever reason. One example is we use a podcast host called Podhome, and we used to use SoundCloud. And SoundCloud used to take me 30 to 45 minutes to type in all the crap to get the show out. And we have 258 episodes. So, I've typed a lot of stuff into SoundCloud. But, now we put it in and it does things like automatic chapters, automatic transcription. It finds clips for the show that we can use on social media. Like it does all this extra stuff, but also it automatically fills in most of the work that I used to have to manually do. So we get 2 or 3 times better output in half the time. And that was one tool I went to look for because I was tired of typing stuff into SoundCloud, right? So there's some really good places to look for tools. One problem you're going to find is everybody says every tool they have is AI now, right? And honestly, it doesn't matter if it's actually AI or not. It only matters if it does the thing you need it to do.
I love that you're sharing your process of how you found the right tools to implement in your business. And, for the most part, we're talking about tools that support doing the work, i.e. implementing the work and saving time on productivity while also creating the output. And most of the stuff is client deliverables. I want to switch gears here and talk about account servicing. Account servicing is largely made up of people communicating to people. You've mentioned that you're currently using AI in your account servicing. What ways has AI actually improved your agency's ability for account servicing?
Well, I think one really good example is that we're more technical people than we are kind of touchy-feely people. We're not that kind of creative agency. We're more of a technical marketing agency where we do a lot of writing and creative stuff and video and things like that. But we don't have, long meetings where we're trying to ask people how things feel and, write stuff on sticky notes and put them on the board underneath, this emotion or that emotion kind of stuff. That's not our thing. But we have a very hard time having conversations with people who want that thing, right? But what they need is what we deliver. So generally speaking, we'll use ChatGPT for that, right? We're like, we need this to sound more like this, like in a more of an emotional pitch. We need to find an angle for this because the client needs hardcore local SEO service that is things like citations and backlinks and signaling and all these things that are technical that they don't care about, but they need it. So how do we express that in the way the clients can understand? So we use it for that type of work. We also RFPs, proposals, taking requirements from clients that are, let's say, non-technical, but they're trying to ask us to do a technical thing. We'll ask it, what are some qualifying questions we can use to get a more clear understanding of this, and that kind of thing. So we'll use it for logic problems and that kind of thing to get the information that we need, but also What questions do we need to ask the client to fill in the blanks? Or we'll simply talk to it, and just like I'm talking to you right now, I'll just have a conversation with it, and I'll say, this is the idea, this is the process, these are all my ideas, this is what we will need to do for the client, and this is what I think is going to be the most effective. We need to do XYZ to get this done. Can you write this up as a proposal? And it'll go da, 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 and write a proposal for you. Then you can edit it, do whatever you need. But another thing I think is important here is to remember that you kind of have to be using the paid version of the tools. So like the difference between GPT 3.5 and 4.0 is giant. I think everybody gets 4.0 now, but paid version of 4.0 is quite different than the free version of 4.0. Once you use it for a little bit, you'll start to see that you kind of get rate limited. It starts to slow down. You don't have those problems if you're doing creative tasks. Like Claude Sonnet is way better than ChatGPT 4 at doing programming tasks. There's different models of LLMs. A lot of people are not aware that there's a whole bunch of different foundational models. So a good example would be the new Meta Llama 405B is really, really good at programming for scripting languages, but it's not really good at writing.
I love that you're diving into all the different versions of the types of tools out there people can tap into. And I think that you make a really good point here in terms of how fast AI is advancing, and each version itself is that much better than the next version. And I just really want to summarize here what you've just said about account servicing and where AI has really played a role for your agency. And it sounds like because you're fairly technical in the work that you do, it's actually helped you add an element of empathy to your communication to your clients. In addition to that, it sounds like it's a strong brainstorming tool to help you get your thoughts out before you construct those proposals. And in addition to constructing proposal, it also sounds like key message summarization is really important for you, because it allows you to pull out what is core, what you want to communicate, and succinctly put it into your communication. Would you say that's a fair summary?
Yeah, and I think the only thing that we haven't really talked about is data analysis. And that is super important, especially if your agency is trying to articulate the results that you get for the client. Because in the years that we've been running the agency, for over a decade now, if you can't articulate exactly the benefit to the client, it's really easy for that client to start to think about, maybe I should look at someone else. Somebody talked to me and they have a new marketing person. Maybe I should try this out or try that out. But if you can take their reporting, like Google Analytics 4 it's a disaster. Like nobody knows how to use it for the most part. And anybody who does know how to use it is, generally speaking, highly technical and very expensive. But if you can get it to generate the reports, you could stick them all into GPT and you could say, show me the difference between this month versus last month. How do I get the ROI on, this process that we're doing for this client? What reports do I need to prove that what I'm doing is working? And those are things that you can get data analysis for that will save you clients. And not only will they save you clients, but you can summarize the reports, because nobody wants to read the reports. They just want the summary of the report. So if you're going to write a report and a 20-page report for your client, stick the whole thing in a ChatGPT and say, give me the 3 takeaways that the client wants to know about this data.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought up data analysis and how AI can support that. I think that any client who is working with an agency wants to see good reporting. And good reporting, like you just mentioned, isn't just a dump of data in someone's face, because if they can't understand the data, it doesn't mean anything. And having a tool like AI come in and simplify that reporting, that adds value to your clients. But it also simplifies your life, because you can ask the AI to figure it out rather than sitting there for half an hour trying to craft that email or pull out the summary. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. There's another area I want to ask you when it comes to how you've used AI in your business. You've mentioned that it has literally increased your productivity by twofold in the business. I'm curious, with that increase in the productivity, has there been any new products or services that have come out of you exploring AI? And what are some of those new products or things that have come out, if indeed that's an area that you've looked at?
So I think our newest product is a perfect example. It's called SMB Autopilot, and it's for businesses that have a physical location or like a tradesperson who has an area that they work in. And it is essentially a local SEO tool. So we had 167 things over 6 months that we work on for a company to improve their local search. And we've been able to essentially put that into an automation system that uses a combination of vendors, human intervention when needed, or the AI will go, and we mixed it with a little bit of Python scripting to do things like scrape their website and check for things like, is their icon working? Is their copyright up to date? And are they mentioning the services on their website that are in their Google business profile? And so we have all these things that we use the system for. And we were able to lower the price on that service for local businesses from $1,250 a month to $395 a month, because it takes that much less labor. And we're able to still keep it at a margin that, will make our agency money. So we've been able to keep the profit margin in it, but drop the price by 66%.
Wow. I gotta say wow to that. So is this a new product, or is this a existing product that you've, for lack of a better word, let's just call it reinvented with AI? And because you've reinvented it, you've been able to offer it in this new version that costs 66% less to the buyer than it would have naturally cost if you didn't use AI.
We've been testing it with existing clients for 3 months. It's technically open to the public, but nobody really knows about it because we haven't advertised it or anything yet. We have not had a client so far that used it that did not get the improvement that we were hoping for. A good example is we had an attorney in a large city in the United States that was in a suburban area with about 500,000 population. And we were able to take them from 13th place on map searches for things like defense attorney, DUI attorney, like really, really difficult terms to rank for. And we've already moved them up to first for half of those terms and in the top 3 for the rest. And that was in 3 months. And in that, we only had about 45 minutes of human intervention needed with the tool. Everything else was automated.
That's some amazing data to be proud of. I'm sure agency owners are wondering, how do I do that for our agency? How do we build something that does amazingly in producing results and saves our team time that we can also put out there and add so much value, but not charge the client an arm and a leg, really give that value back to them? So what advice would you give to agencies who are looking to leverage AI for creating a new service or a new product offering?
So I think there's 3 ways really for your agency to make more money. You can either lower the cost or keep the price the same, right? So you lower the cost of delivering the service without lowering the quality. You can have some sort of upsell, right? Additional things that they need that you can provide. Or you increase the cost of the service that you can offer because you're adding so much value to it. And I think what you want to do is take something that you already do that has a lot of manual steps, especially if there is kind of a flow chart of kind of yes or no decisions in it. Like, do they need this or do they need this? Do they have a logo already or do they don't? Do they need a color, the color to match this or not? Or, whatever those decisions are, and figure out which one of those decisions, which ones can you automate? And a really easy way to do that is just type the question, give an example to your AI and ask it the question, right? So if let's say you have a process where the client is going to shoot some photos and videos of their product, and it's your job to turn that into a social media strategy for that client. Then every time they send you the videos, they're not in the same length or format. So could I automate that? Well, the answer is yes, right? And then could I have a website form where the client goes to my website, uploads it, then it fixes the video and puts it in the right size and format, and then sends it to my editor? And the answer to that is yes. So now you just keep going down the list. What is the next step in the process? And if the next step is the editor has to make creative decisions, then you don't automate that, right? And then once they're done, what's their next thing? Well, they need to have it cut into 6 different shapes, or, square, long form, vertical, horizontal, whatever. So, okay, we're going to give them a tool like GetMunch or, Muse or something that they can use to automatically do that for them. And then if that goes to the social media person, maybe we can automatically put it on their calendar and automatically dump all the stuff into a Google Drive for them. So you can automate all those processes. And once you've automated it and it's taking, say, half the staff hours that it used to, well, now you've lowered your cost 50%. So you could keep charging your clients, or you could take 50% more clients on without having to increase your staff, which doubles your income. The most important thing, I think, is trying to flowchart or document your flagship products or whatever that thing, that offering that you're thinking of doing is, and then looking at every single step and saying, can I automate this? Can I have, if it's a decision, is there a AI good enough to make the decision for me? Or is there a tool I can use to lower the overhead on this step?
This is great. There's a lot to consider here. Thank you for sharing that. Lots to think about. I'm curious what you think the ethical considerations are while using AI, especially concerning client data and transparency.
So it's a tough question, and everybody kind of needs to make up their mind for their agency. We are 100% upfront with our clients that we're going to use AI. We are going to use it, and if they don't want us to use it, then we're going to have a conversation of maybe we're not the right fit for them, because that's not our process, right? Now, like an attorney is a good example. I can do SEO work for an attorney and not give any client information away or financial data or anything. But if you're handling stuff for maybe, somebody working in finance or insurance or even certain types of things to do with real estate, you have to really understand what the laws are around that industry and what needs to be kept in-house and what can go out. And if the client pays enough money to make it worthwhile, you can run a small LLM like GPT model in-house, or you can do a cloud service. And that might require a developer to set up for you, but it's not as difficult as you would think. So like you can spin up a cloud service on Amazon with a copy of Llama's AI that is on that cloud hosted computer and doesn't send any data to Facebook, right? Or you can use Minstrel, like an open source model or something like that. You can also self-train them. So there's options.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I know that's a big question to consider, so I really appreciate you just sharing your thoughts. Now, looking ahead, how do you see AI evolving within the agency space? And what should agency owners be prepared for in the next few years?
Well, you're looking at a doubling of AI power roughly every 12 to 18 months. And it's hard to kind of wrap your brain around how much the power of that exponential change is going to be. Like GPT-3 was the equivalent of a toddler, and GPT-4 was about the same as a teenager. And the current version of 4.0 is about the same as a first-year college graduate when it comes to things like comprehension, planning, reasoning, decision-making. So it's going to be the same as a college graduate, bachelor's level person, probably in 6 months to 12 months. And 3 years from now, it's going to be the same as probably a master's degree trained person. In another 3 to 5 years, it's going to be a PhD candidate. So the other thing is that the knowledge of training the system is being worked on in parallel with how they can create better reasoning capability. So GPT-4o is not a new trained GPT-4. It's GPT-4 with other reasoning capability put into it. So it's not a retraining of the model. And I don't want to get too much in the weeds with the technical details, but it just means that they're not only training bigger models, they're training bigger models that also have exponentially better reasoning capability. Eventually, they are going to be either they're going to hit a ceiling where it's hard to make it better than it is at that point, but nobody who's an expert in the field seems to think that's going to happen anytime soon. Most people think they're going to be the equivalent of a small company in the amount of output and power that they have and reasoning capability within, a decade.
Your book is called Will AI Take My Job?
Yes.
From what you just shared there, I can guess what your answer to that question would be, but will AI take the job of many agency positions? What is your take on that?
Yes, but not as many as you would think. So our agency is heavily invested in AI because that's going to keep our agency alive over the long term. If you go out right now and look at, I hate to say it, but there is a lot of companies who did things like web design and social media and writing and things like that, who email, stuff that were mediocre. They're better than nothing, but they weren't great. I mean, it's just a fact of life. There's always going to be some that are good, some that are bad, some are elite, that kind of thing. GPT-4o is already better than the ones that were not good at it. So those people are already starting to lose their job. So they either need to get better, or they got to learn how to use AI so they can be more productive, or they got to find something else to do. And that's just the way it is, right? It's hard to describe what is going to happen to a lot of jobs in a way without sounding like, you don't care or something, which is totally not the case. But I have to face the fact that these things are going to happen. And I wrote my book in October, and all of my predictions of what's going to happen in the first 6 months already came true. So I think I have a pretty good idea what's going to happen in the next couple of years. And you also have to remember that there's a lot of people who do not want to use AI, or they can't because of some kind of restriction or regulation. So if you serve one of those industries, that's a really, really good way to keep your agency going. I interviewed on my podcast an author who also teaches voice acting, who's quite a successful voice actor. And people getting into voice acting now, it's almost like a don't bother situation, because the AI voiceovers are being used. Nobody's hiring voice actors on Fiverr anymore for $20, $50. All those people are gone, because you could just type it into 11 Labs for free, right? Or Play HT or something like that. So, what's going to happen is your agency either needs to focus on areas that AI is currently not good at, or at least that doesn't look like it's going to be good at soon, or you need to be a fairly high-level expert in your field so that you can guide the AI to do the lower-level work, kind of like a really educated intern, right? You need to know the lingo and the industry terms and all the things that you would use with your staff to get the output that you desire. That's what you're going to need to use the AI to get the output you desire. Somebody who's not good at writing cannot make the AI write well. Somebody who is good at writing can make it write fairly well, and then knows what needs to tweak, to get the last bits fixed, kind of thing.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing your advice on the future of AI, how that impacts the agency space, and then also sharing your advice to agency owners who may be hesitating to adopt AI and what that would mean for them. as well as speaking to those who want to adopt AI and sharing what it means to use AI in a way that doesn't leave them a cookie cutter or a lookalike agency to every other agency using AI to deliver work. Matt, before we close off here, I'd love to know, what is your agency journey? What got you here into being the agency owner that you are today?
Well, because I'm old, I've been doing this a really long time. And I built my first website for $50 and a case of beer in 1996. And from there, I was like, I can't believe someone's going to pay me to do this. You know, HTML at the time only had 106 commands in it. And you just wrote it in a text editor, and you had to use Netscape Navigator to get to it. And Google didn't even exist yet. So I'd always had a kind of a side business doing web programming and writing websites and stuff like that. And then I was doing internal company, like large organization work on a program called SharePoint, which took me to the United States to work for Intel. I worked for Intel, Nike, some other large companies down there. I noticed the gal you had on the last episode, he used to work for Adidas. So Nike and Adidas were kind of in the same area there. But I always ran my agency work on the side, helping people out. And then 2008, I decided I was going to make a go of it, kind of by myself. I only took 2 more contracts after that of other work for large companies. And ever since I was on my own, in 2014, my business partner and I had been working on projects together for several years, and we formally merged our companies. And he had an e-commerce company who was also a merchant processor so that they could accept payments and stuff. And I had an SEO and advertising company and web design company. So we put them together, and we became essentially a nonstop shop for e-commerce and small business. And over the years, that's kind of shifted. And our focus right now is we do website development on projects that we like. We don't take any projects we don't like because we have that option. And then we have a top 10 list. Those are the 10 clients who we do marketing, all of their marketing for. We basically are their fractional marketing department. And then we have the small business autopilot, which we're using to replace our local SEO business. And, we still do some advertising for some clients and stuff, but that's about it. Everything is going into kind of one of those 3 buckets. It's either development, the small business autopilot, and on the side, also, we run a couple of e-commerce stores, but that's kind of more of proofs in the pudding kind of thing. If we can't do it for ourselves, we shouldn't be doing it for somebody else. So we test things out on our own stores first.
Matt, it sounds like you've had an incredible journey and it isn't ending anytime soon. It sounds like there's new adventures that are starting to happen for you. If anyone wants to connect with you, Matt, where could they find you?
I'm always on LinkedIn. I'm Matt Rouse on LinkedIn. On Amazon, my book is Will AI Take My Job? Predictions about AI in Corporations, Small Business, and the Workplace. Or you could go to MatthewRouse.com, which has links to all the stuff. And I'm not really selling anything. You just hit me up on LinkedIn. And we'll chat.
Thank you, Matt. Hey, thanks for hanging out with me at the Small But Mighty Agency podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you hit the follow or subscribe button in your podcast app and share it with a friend. I'll see you on the next one.